So let's take a look at the Unit 1 review. Now, as a heads up, the reviews tend to look quite a bit like the test. So if you know that you can do this, you should be fine for the test. I'm also noticing that I did a typo on algebra up there. There should be Algebra, but I'm going to leave it that way for now. One thing to notice, standing directions for the entire test and for the year, you have to show the required work, and it's also saying to circle your final answers. And that's true of every problem on the test and on the review. So, the order of operations, as a reminder, do all operations inside parentheses or grouping symbols, then all exponents, then multiplication and division, whichever comes first from left to right, and then addition and subtraction, whichever comes first from left to right. While I see a set of parentheses here, there's no operation inside the parentheses. It's just the number -3. So I have subtraction, multiplication, addition, and an exponent. In this case then, the exponent comes first, so this becomes 12 minus 8 times 3 plus -3 to the second power means -3 times itself, which is +9. Now with subtraction, multiplication, and addition, I multiply first. So 12 minus 24 plus 9. So all I have left now is addition and subtraction, and it's whichever of those comes first, which is the subtraction in this case. So -12 plus 9 for a final answer of -3. Now I need to circle that answer, and then I'm done. I would recommend taking your calculator and punching in this original problem exactly the way it looks. Don't forget the parentheses, hitting equals, and making sure you get -3 as your answer to know that you did the problem correctly. Again, I see parentheses, but there's no operation inside of there. It's just a number. So the next thing I would check for is exponents, and there aren't any. This is all multiplication, division, and multiplication, and I do the first one to the left. So 4 times 8 is 32, divided by my -2 and times my +3. The division comes before the second multiplication, so I divide first. 32 divided by -2 is -16. Bring down my times 3. And -16 times 3 is -48. Don't forget to circle your answer when you're done. This is the first time I actually see operations inside grouping symbols. Now I have two separate sets of grouping symbols. I have these big brackets, and then inside those big brackets, I've got this set of parentheses. We work our way from the inside grouping symbols out. So the first thing I'm going to do is just the 6 minus 8. So the -3 with the big square brackets is going to come down. Inside there is going to be 5 minus 2 times 6 minus 8 is -2. Close that, and then I still have operations inside those big square brackets. And I'm going to bring down my plus -10. So all I did in this first step was 6 minus 8. Everything else got copied down the way that it originally looked. So -3, I still have this big set of square brackets that I'm not done with yet, but I'm going to bring down this plus my -10 to use later. Now I have subtraction and multiplication inside the big brackets, so I multiply before I subtract. This becomes 5 minus a -4. Now I can actually do this last operation inside these square brackets. 5 minus -4, so this becomes -3. 5 minus -4 is the same thing as 5 plus a +4. I don't need to do that. I could actually put 5 minus -4 in my calculator. But this becomes -3 times +9 plus my -10. Now, this became a +9. Remind yourself, though, that it's multiplication between the -3 and the brackets. Some people, as soon as they turn this into a +9, want to change this to +9. But multiplication does not become addition. Multiply before I add, so -3 times 9 is -27. Bring down my plus -10, and -27 plus -10 is -37. Don't forget to circle your final answer. When I evaluate expressions, the very first thing I do is just substitute for the variable. So the 5, the w becomes a 3, which I'm going to put in parentheses with the square on the outside, minus 8 times 3 plus 12. Now if I want to, I can speed up this process just a little bit because I don't have any operations inside parentheses. I know the last thing I'm going to do is this subtraction and this addition because they are not inside parentheses, and addition and subtraction are the last things I do in the order of operations unless they're inside parentheses. So I can start simplifying this part and this part simultaneously. I have multiplication and an exponent on this left part. Exponent would go first, so this becomes, oops, sorry about that. This becomes 5 times positive 9 minus 8 times 3 is 24, and then my plus 12. I still have to do this multiplication before I can add or subtract, so 45 minus 24 plus 12. I add or subtract from left to right, whichever one comes first. In this case, it's subtraction, so 45 minus 24 is 21, and bring down my plus 12. I can't do the 21 and then add the 12 and get 33 all in one step. Remember that your rule is, one of the rules is, once you calculate a number, that has to be written down in the next step. You can't calculate it and then use it again in the same step. So finally, 21 plus 12 is 33, and I circle my final answer. First step is just to substitute in. So 3m becomes 3 times 2 minus 4. 3m means 3 times m. And then this squares on the outside. I have two operations inside parentheses. There's multiplication and subtraction. Multiplication should be done before subtraction. So negative 2, 3 times 2 is 6, bring down my minus 4. Notice I haven't done anything with this exponent yet because it's on the outside of the parentheses. First I have to simplify everything inside the parentheses. So negative 2 times 6 minus 4 is 2 squared. At this point I have multiplication and an exponent. Exponents are done first. So negative 2 times positive 4 for a final answer of negative 8, which I will then circle. Simplifying by combining like terms, well, I have w squared, but it's the only w squared. I have a constant, and here's another constant, and here's a third constant, and then I have this w term and another w term. Of those three kinds of terms, w squareds go first, so that 5w squared doesn't have anything to combine with. It stays a 5w squared. For the w's, the coefficients, I have a positive 4 minus 9, and if I punch in my calculator, positive 4 minus 9, I get negative 5, so I write this as minus 5w. And then for my constants, negative 3 minus negative 8 minus 10, and I can punch it in my calculator just that way. And I end up with negative 5, so I write minus 5. Don't forget to circle your final answer, and don't forget to show this work on your problem. Well, I have an a term and another a term. I have an a squared term and another a squared term, and then I have a constant and another constant. A squareds would go first, so negative 8.2 plus negative 3.4 is negative 11.6 as the coefficient of my a squared term. Don't forget to write your a squared in there. Positive 5a minus negative 3a. If I take my calculator and punch in positive 5 minus negative 3, it's going to say positive 8, so plus 8a. And then my constant, positive 4 minus 9.2 is negative 5.2, so I write minus 5.2. Don't forget to circle your answer, and then go on to your next problem. I need to distribute, but then also make sure I write my write my answer in standard form. Well, this has to take 3 times everything in the parentheses. 3 times 4y is 12y. Positive 3 times a negative, because of the minus in front of it, 7, is a negative 21, so I write minus 21. I can't combine these like terms because this is a y term and this is a constant. They're already written in the correct order because the variable term is before the constant, so I'm done. Don't forget to show this work on your distributive property. Negative 2 times 6 is negative 12. Negative 2 times a negative 8x is a positive, so plus 16x. I would be done except that this is not in standard form. The variable term should go before the constant term. So when this plus 16x comes out front, it comes out front as a positive 16x. And this negative 12 moves to the back as a minus 12. Then I can circle my answer, and I'm done. Here, I do have a distributive property part. I have this negative 3 times this 2w minus 8. So everything that's not that distributive property, I'm just going to copy down. 5 plus 9w minus negative 2. This is not a distributive property part. There's not two different terms inside this set of parentheses. It's just minus negative 2. Negative 3 times 2w is a negative 6w, so minus 6w is what I write. Negative 3 times a negative 8 is a positive 24, so plus 24. I have a constant, a second constant, and a third constant. I have a w term and another w term. When I do this in standard form, my w's go first, so negative 6 plus 9 gives me a positive 3 for my coefficient of w. Positive 5 plus 24 is 29, minus a negative 2 becomes a positive 31. So 3w plus 31. Make sure that you know how to do these problems and that you understand them well, and then you are ready for your test. Thank you.